Hello and welcome to Linesniper Fight Night. I am your host, Dave Milhouse. I got Cody with me again today. We're going over UFC Vegas 25 from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Back in the small octagon at the UFC Apex. We're going to go through the main card, sprinkle a little bit of the prelims, give you some best bets, and we're going to find all the value for you starting right now. Cody, what's going on, my man? Welcome.
Yeah, happy to be here. Got blown up late last week's card. I mean, they were all spectacular finishes, don't get me wrong, but yeah, you got to have some lucky breaks in this game, and I'm not referring to Chris Weidman's leg, which is very much an unlucky break, but yeah, same thing with Jimmy Crute. Some of the spots that I thought we had a good shot on, yeah, things happen. So looking to rebound this week. I think we have a nice little card to look at. Hopefully we can find the proper spots and make some money on it, Dave.
I'm with you last week. Rose head kicked my wallet right out of my pocket, unfortunately, but we got another event this week, so let's get right back to it and make some money. Dominic Reyes, Yuri Prohashka. This sounds like a fun fight, man. This is a really fun fight. It is a really tough one to handicap. Here we have Yuri. He's a bit of a showman, or maybe actually a lot of a showman. And that doesn't really help you on the scorecards. But here we have a 5-round fight with a 1.5 total. It's probably not going the distance. In fact, I don't even know if Yuri has the gas to go the distance. But this is a tough one, man. Dominic Reyes has fought some good competition. He's only lost 2 fights. There were his last 2 fights, and they were against the light heavyweight champions, both Jan and John Jones. And, oh, man, so it's not like this is a step up in competition for him at all. But this is a powerful man who's hard to get a read on. He does a lot of unorthodox things and showboating, like I said. And, man, a really tough read here. But because it's not going to the scorecards, I think we can pretty much throw out the statistical data here. Like, does it really matter that Reyes lands a little bit more per minute than he absorbs and Yuri takes a little bit more than he lands? I mean, probably not, if at the end of the day someone's getting knocked out cold here. So for me, this is a tough one to handicap, and I assume the line is probably pretty close to right. This should be about a pick 'em. Feels like the longer it goes, the more you might like a guy like Dominic Reyes. But man, unorthodox power in Yuri, I'm really excited about it. I really don't have a clue who's going to win this fight or what the line should be. So I'm going to defer to you, kick it off to the guest. Break down this fight for us, Cody.
I mean, listen, yeah, you nailed it. This one's very, very difficult to handicap because both guys got a path of victory here. Yuri is just a man on fire. He comes out there, he's looking for a barn burner, he's looking to put hands on you, and he's very, very aggressive early. Is that to his detriment? Probably, because when you fight that aggressive, there's no way you can sustain that for 15 minutes, let alone 25 minutes. So Dominic Reyes is a guy that we know went 25 minutes to John Jones. If he comes on good shape on his best night and takes that early onslaught from Yuri, then yeah, you would think that the later rounds are gonna favor him, and you should be able to break him down late. But yeah, there's something that I really like about Yuri. He's only 28 years old, but this is a guy that I followed for a long time when he was in Japan, and when he was fighting for Ryzen, my God, man on fire. Now I hear a lot of pundits keep saying about he was a can crusher, guy's a can crusher, and I'm absolutely in disagreement with that. When you look at his record, and yeah, he has a ton of wins. It's completely littered with Darko Stosic, right? UFC veteran defeats him. Satoshi Ishii, Olympic gold medalist in judo, defeats him. Vadim Nemkov is the current Bellator light heavyweight champion, beat Ryan Bitter and Phil Davis a couple weeks ago. Causes him to quit on a stool after 10 minutes, right? Kazushi Fishida, he's a Pride veteran. Carl Albrechtsen, currently in Bellator, standout 205er legit. Jake Kuhn, World Series of Fighting veteran. Brendan Halsey, former Bellator champion. Muhammad Lawal, Strikeforce champion. Fabio Holanda, CB Dalloway, Vulkan Ozdemir, obviously all UFC veterans. What more does this guy got to do, right? As far as not fighting in the UFC, he's fought all the best guys that were available to him. And more times than not, he's passed with flying colors. You look at the losses, the 3 losses. Muhammad Lawal, he avenged that one. And that's a former Strikeforce champion. And the 2 other losses are Bojan Vilikovic and Abdul Karim Edilov. Edilov signed to the UFC, never fought in the UFC due to some political issues, and obviously Bojan Vilikovic, UFC veteran. So even his 3 pro losses are to high-level guys. I think that at 28, he's getting better. He's feeling into himself. People, again, they want to talk about cardio, and I agree. When you push that kind of pace, cardio is going to be an issue. The Vadim Nemkov fight, 10 minutes in, straight round, 1 round, causes him to quit. Well, where was the cardio problems there? The Carl Albrechtsen fight, finishes him 9.5 minutes into that first round. The Vulkan Ozdemir fight, he puts a pressure on him and then slowly grinds him down and is able to break him down. But and eventually takes him out in the second round after like a lackluster first, I'd say. I don't know that he has cardio issues. So my problem with Dominic Reyes is he reminds me of Kelvin Gastelum, right? Kelvin Gastelum had that one fight with Israel Adesanya where he looked like $1 million, and that's his claim to fame. And all the fights after that, and all the fights, prior when he's not fighting the aged Vitor Belforts or Michael Bisping, he's super tentative and just doesn't let his hands go enough. And I see the same thing in Dominic Reyes. He had a career best performance against John Jones, but the very next fight against Jan Blachowicz, he just didn't want to let his hands go. He just stood there. He just allowed Blachowicz to dictate the pace. As a result, Blachowicz wins the first round and then knocks him out in the second round. Dominic Reyes hadn't been knocked out at that point. He arguably loses the Volkan Nuzmir fight when he fights him on the basis of, again, just not throwing any volume. There's no volume there. So I think that Yuri comes out and for the first 2 rounds just puts it on him. And if Dominic is able to, live through that, then it's a live betting opportunity to maybe bet Reyes down a couple rounds knowing that Yuri's tired. But I think Yuri is live for probably a TKO finish. That's at plus 120 if you want to try to improve this line. Or, my gut tells me the over 1.5, but the way Yuri fights, you don't want to be betting over 1.5. Like he's going to make you sweat the entire time. So I'm not super confident in Prochazka, but I am a fan of his work, and I think that he's going to come out on the other end of this fight and set himself up for a potential title fight down the road, maybe a fight or two away from one.
Yeah, I would agree with the good live betting opportunity if he looks like he's getting tired. But if this guy really does have the cardio, he'll probably finish Reyes. I think he's got a lot of power in those hands, man. He throws kind of awkward strikes. They're not the most technical, but it seems like he puts his full body into every strike and tries to kill you. And I like that. I do enjoy a man that's on a mission instead of trying to point fight and leaving it up to these judges who are incompetent and shouldn't even have jobs. But yeah, Yuri looks like a future star in the making. And if he can go through Volkan Ozdemir, and then Dominic Reyes, I mean, you have to pretty much give him a title shot. I like that. So yeah, I'm going to lean with you. It's about a minus 130 right now. And like I said, limited data from the UFC experience he has, but on the film, he looks pretty good. And he is fighting reasonable competition. They're not the cans like Twitter's talking about, just like you said. Pretty good competition. So yeah, I'm going to lean towards Yuri here at minus 130, but I can't confidently put a number on it. So I haven't bet it yet, but I do lean it with you. And I think live betting wise, the line ain't going to get much better on Yuri until he's completely gassed and Reyes flips to a favorite. So then it's useless to you anyway. You might as well lay the little bit of chalk early. Co-main event, Giga Chikadze, Cub Swanson. This should be a good fight. Cub's the kind of guy who he's game. He ain't going nowhere. He's gonna be there all 3 rounds, and he throws a decent amount of volume. He's pretty well rounded. This is a good fight now. Giga Chikadze here, he hasn't really fought anybody good. We just talked about can crushing. This guy's schedule is a bit of a can crushing. It's UFC, but it's like low level UFC is not better than good fighters in other leagues. I don't think personally. So interested to see how he fares like Cub. But I think this Giga guy, man, I think he's got some of the sharpest striking in the featherweight division. I truly believe he'll work his way into the top 10. And I don't really know how much further than that he goes, but he feels like at least a top 10 kind of guy to me. Good hands. He strikes hard, too. This is a guy that puts everything into every strike. Good kicks, good distance control. Some people think he's got a little bit of ground issues, but it's been looking better and better as he goes on. I know he's training to stuff takedowns and be better in that area because that's where people are going to want to take it. I think this guy can beat Cub. He does throw a little bit less volume, but with every strike, like I said, he's got more power. He's going to do more damage, but he does take less strikes as well. Cub's getting hit with about 3.6 over his career. He's getting hit with 2.6. Now Cub also lands 4.6. He's landing 3.5. So they're both about a strike ahead. And Cub's done it against better competition. So when you look at this data and the strength of schedule, you got to think Cub's a live dog here. I don't have an issue with anyone that thinks that. But when I look through Cub's schedule, you'll see that there's quite a big difference between when he's fighting good opponents and not so good opponents. I mean, he's lost to pretty much every good fighter he's faced except for Charles Oliveira. Is that fair? I mean, kind of, yeah. And so how do we separate this? If we look at his stat lines against bums, yeah, he's crushing them. He doubled up on Pineda, knocked him down twice. He smoked Chrome Gracie. I'm an idiot. I had money on Chrome Gracie that night. I thought he was obviously to grapple. The guy didn't even shoot a takedown. Brutal. But prior to that, you see him fight Burgos, Moicano, even Frankie Edgar, who's best days are behind him. A Brian Ortega, he's losing all these fights. He's losing them all. And I don't know where Giga Chikadze fits in that level of competition, but like I said, I think he's a top 10, and I think that'll give enough problems to the veteran Cub Swanson here. If they're going to kickbox, I think it's a pretty good chance that Giga lands the better shots, does more damage. And so I don't mind this line. I liked it a little bit more a couple days ago at the minus 150. I took a little piece of that, but even at the minus 170, it'd be the favorite or pass for me in this situation. I feel like I'm on a bit of an island here. Are you joining me on the island, or is it a one-man party, Cody?
Yeah, I think people are just chasing the value, and they're looking for an underdog, and Cub Swanson's always an underdog with a chance. In fact, this guy generally shows up as the betting underdog, and he puts forth his best effort every time out. Cub's the kind of guy that could be down 2 rounds, and he's going to fight for that finish in the third. He's got heart that's, unmeasurable. He's got a willingness to go out there and exchange. Now, I agree. Listen, he's on the back nine of his career. He's had so many injuries, torn knees, blown out ACLs, torn meniscus, multiple broken hands, hip injury, shoulder injury. At this point, he's only got a couple hurrahs left in the tank, and he takes a lot of damage in all of these fights. Giga, stylistically, is not a very good fight for him, in that Cub Swanson likes to mix it up and make it a dirty brawl. You don't want to brawl with Giga, man. First of all, I mean, he's the more accredited kickboxer, former glory kickboxer, Kyokushin karate black belt, but also he's a natural counterpuncher, and he likes when these guys are aggressive and come at him. The other thing that you didn't mention that is a huge point if you're a Giga backer is that Giga's 6 feet tall versus Cub Swanson's 5'8". He's also got a 4-inch reach advantage on top of that 4-inch height advantage. So again, if this thing stays at range, I mean, Giga all day is probably going to piece him up. He's got a very long kick game, kick to the body, kick to the head, as you saw in this last fight with Jamie Simmons, leg kicks as well, and likes to intercept his opponents coming forward. So Cub Swanson, he's going to have a tough task on his hands if he chooses to keep this fight standing the entire time. But the one wrinkle is Cub Swanson, for as much veteranship as he has and all this savviness, use your ground game, man. I mean, he is a jiu-jitsu black belt. You saw in his last fight with Daniel Pineda. I mean, his grappling is still there. His wrestling is not great, but it's certainly not bad. And you made a point when you talked about Cub Swanson, there's a big gap in between him fighting good guys and him fighting bad guys. Well, I would say most of the guys that he has fought are good guys. But again, what gap does Giga have between good guys and bad guys? It's all been bad guys. Now, when you look at Giga Chikadze's career, he shows like a 68% takedown defense. It's not particularly good. He gave up 4 takedowns on Contender Series against Austin Springer. He gave up 3 takedowns against Brandon Davis. He gave up 2 takedowns on Jamal Emmers. And by the way, Jamal Emmers just chose not to wrestle. Took him down twice. Could have easily won the fight. Had to chose to wrestle a little more, just didn't. But then it's the subsequent fights, right? Erwin Rivera's not trying to take you down. He's 5'6" striker, right? Took the fight on week's notice. Omar Morales, dropping down to featherweight for the first time, had a bad weight cut, attempted 1 takedown, really didn't even commit to it. There's no wrestling there. And then Jamie Simmons, come on. Jamie Simmons came in on short notice as a 10-1 underdog and was expected to lose, and he did lose. That's also the first time Giga's finished a guy in the UFC, because a lot of the time, yes, he has knocked down opponents, and he put a beating on Omar Morales, but you know what I mean? He's not knocking these guys out. So from what you do look in 15 minutes time frame, right, he's generally 65 against Morales, 61 against Erwin Rivera, and only landed 38 against Jamal Emmers, 59 against Brandon Davis. Those are low output numbers. So the fight stays standing. He's got the advantage, but Cub could make it close and competitive just on the basis of trying to land 2-1. But the difference, if Cub wants to actually win this fight, is try to get the fight to the ground. Try to get a hold of this guy and tear him to the ground. I mean, Giga's been matched up. He's 5-0 in the UFC, and his biggest win in the UFC, I guess, is Omar Morales, but doesn't really have anything notable. And then as far as his regional show career, I know you and I have talked about this before, but like before he came to these, they're like 0-16, these guys. Like, these guys are abysmal talent. So he's really been protected. We know he's a good striker, but his cardio's not been great in the past. His ground game's not been great in the past. His volume's not been great in the past. All of this just makes live underdog Cub Swanson. So it's not that I disagree with you. When the fight first got announced, I was like, this could be a Giga's coming out party. But when I saw the line, I was like, oh shit, it's dog or pass for me personally. So I guess we're going to be on opposite sides of this one. But again, if someone was to pass on this altogether, recognizing that both guys have some merit and a path to victory, I wouldn't fault them.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Cubs, like you said, not going anywhere. And we're going to have to see if Mr. Giga can stuff some takedowns. I believe he's been working on it. I know he hasn't really been testing his last couple of fights, but just watching interviews and whatnot, it seems like most of his focus is defending takedowns, ground game, and the rest. But yeah, the UFC's kind of feeding him these little cupcake schedule. Cub's a good test. I think he's ready for the test, though. I really like the way this guy controls his distance. especially with that big height and reach advantage. He should be able to fight long, stay on the outside, and land some nice shots. So I already have money on him at minus 150. I don't know that I'd be laying this minus 170 or higher. I don't have to, though. That's the good news. Ion Cutilaba, Dustin Jacoby, another interesting fight here. I like Ion Cutilaba here. I just don't understand why he's not slightly a bigger favorite. I guess, he's coming off back-to-back losses, but they're against Ankalaev, who I think could be the champion in the future. The loss before that was against Glover, who he outworked 74-30 by mid-second round. This guy just gets himself in trouble. He's not exactly a trustworthy type of fighter, but he does have the volume. He's landing 5 strikes a minute to Dustin Jacoby's only landing 3.68 per minute. And here I am. I was high on Jacoby going into the Gresham fight. I bet on him. I won. I don't know how. I scored it the other way. He got knocked down twice and outstruck, and the judges somehow gave it to him. I don't think he would be getting this fight against Ion had he lost that fight, and he did lose that fight, in my opinion. The volume wasn't there. If it's not there against Gresham, I don't know what he's going to do against Hulk here. Personally, I think Hulk puts him away, but that remains to be seen. If he can weather the storm, he's going to be live, especially on the live line here. You got to imagine Ion comes out hot. He always comes out so winging. And if you're looking at Dustin Jacoby, you might as well wait a couple minutes. But that's just my take on it. This is another tough fight to call. The line, I don't know. I thought it should be more like minus 150-ish, maybe a little bit higher on Ion. But, there's a lot of unknowns here. I think there's a lot of unknown. Is he going to fight with some higher IQ than normal or below? That's troubling. And what kind of volume is Jacoby going to have for us? Because, he's such a wild card, man. I don't even know what to expect. The guy's an animal, an absolute animal. What do you see going on here between the Hulk and Jacoby?
Okay, so it goes back down to ring IQ, which Ion Cutilaba seriously lacks ring IQ. But if he just fights with a game plan of take this guy down, there's an easy path to victory there. Dustin Jacoby's another one of these guys that spent a lot of time kickboxing as of lately. He's also a glory kickboxer. The difference is Giga was an internationally ranked glory kickboxer who fought some of the best guys, whereas Dustin Jacoby did well against American kickboxers, didn't really do good against some of that international competition. There's just not a whole lot to like out of his game. So here's a guy that went 0-2 in the UFC, a decade ago, and then since then has spent a lot of time kickboxing. He's also kind of outgrown his natural weight class. Fights a little high up. But for a guy that trains at altitude, Colorado, time and time again, we always talk about these guys got an advantage in their cardio and they just keep going. Dustin Jacoby has bad cardio, right? We saw in the Contender Series fight with Ty Flores, even though he does land a ton there, he definitely starts to fatigue. And then you've seen in his 2 UFC fights since, just the gas tank is not quite there. Justin Ledetti knocks him out, but he doesn't look great in the lead up to it. And then that last fight against Maxim Grishin, my God. Now, I agree with you. I was very lucky to get that decision because I did not agree that Dustin Jacoby won. The troubling thing for me in that fight is that Maxim Grishin had shown in his 2 prior UFC fights that he didn't really have any power. I'm like a pillow-fisted guy, right? It was just he can land a combination, but there was nothing stinging there. He drops Dustin Jacoby twice, hurts him. We're talking Dustin Jacoby, the glory kickboxer, the accredited kickboxer. He's getting busted up by Maxim Grishin. He gets outstruck on the numbers by Maxim Grishin. He doesn't have a ton of output. His durability looks questionable. His cardio looks questionable. He's 33 years old. I just don't know, if that hump's there. I'm not sure he's getting over that hump. And so this is not an easy matchup with Ion Cutilaba because Cutilaba's still young. He's still improving. He's still only 27 years old. If he does eventually put it all together, the guy does have a skill set. But where Cutilaba likes to swing bombs and make it really aggressive, almost ultra aggressive, that's not the approach here. The approach here is use that European combat sambo background, right? He's a former European combat sambo champion. The guy does have a decent pedigree. He actually shows 71% takedown accuracy in the UFC. But you go back and you watch, say, his fight with Warhorse, right? Khalil Roundtree. It's like Khalil Roundtree is a big, strong body, training out of Thailand, working on his striking lots, right? What were you going to do against this guy? Just take him down and smash him. And that's what he does. Just goes out there, gets an easy takedown, gets on top of him, sets up shot, and just smashes him with a series of elbows. That's all he's got to do here against Dustin Jacoby. Get that takedown, grind him, tire him out, But with Ion, it's not only just questionable ring IQ, he's got bad cardio, right? And I know I just said Dustin Jacoby has bad cardio, and so that's why I'm picking Ion, is I hope that even if Ion gets tired, Jacoby's a little bit tired himself and doesn't quite pull it back and finish him. But in an ideal situation, we get under 1.5 Ion and Ion by TKO, and he just goes out there, gets that takedown, and tries to get this thing over with. Problem is that Ion tries that in almost all of his fights, and when he doesn't get that finish, he's in a lot of trouble. What I will finish this off with giving him a pass for, and I know you mentioned it as well, is like 2 losses to Magomed and Ankalaev. Like, buddy, that's no big deal. As far as I'm concerned, I'll give you more than a pass on that. It's totally fine. Would you like to see what Magomed Ankalaev would do to Dustin Jacoby? Right, exactly. He'd be an 8-1 favorite as a morning line opener. There are leagues to this. There's levels to this, and I feel like Dustin Jacoby he's very middling, whereas Ion Cutilaba shows the potential to go on to bigger and better things, right? To fight the Glover Teixeiras of the world. Like, he's been in good spots. It's just he needs to get back to the basics, improve the cardio, add some more experience under his belt, fight some better matchups like this one, and get back on a win streak.
Yeah, I think this is it's set up for him to get back on his win streak. I mean, Ankalaev was a -400 favorite in both fights. That's not like you're supposed to win that one. We all knew he wouldn't win that one. I mean, that was basically an auto loss going in. And Glover, I mean, he was working Glover. Glover's not easy to work. He's got a head like a cinder block. He can take a beating. He gassed himself out a little, sure. But Glover's really good. I mean, Anthony Smith did the same thing to Glover, and then Glover took over. That guy can take an absolute beating for at least the first round. And, basically the same story in both those fights. But after losing 3 of your last 4 fights, you have to think, if the guy's not completely retarded, he gets back to basics, right? And if he does, like you just said, I mean, he could smoke Jacoby. He could outland him on the feet and then take him down and beat the crap out of him. It's all on the table. So, yeah, it's either Hulk or pass. And I don't see why not Hulk, because he's going to come out hot. And when a favorite comes out hot, well, the line usually stretches. So you can get a free hedge. You can free roll this live, probably 2.5 minutes into the fight if that's your thing. I certainly like to do it a little bit, but I think I'd rather just, lay a little bit of chalk here on Ion and hope he doesn't gas himself out with bad IQ. That's a hope. It's not a guarantee. Sean Strickland, and we got Jocko coming in here. Christoph Jaco. Interesting guy, reasonable UFC fighter here. I don't really know what to make of him. Like, he's not that good, but he's also not that bad. He's a very middle of the pack guy. He's landing about 3 strikes a minute, and he's taking about 1.9, and that's pretty good. But we look over his strength of schedule here, and it's not impressive. I mean, it's okay. It's also a very middle of the pack kind of deal here. And I kind of feel like Sean Strickland is not, I think he's slightly better than middling. Like, he's not great, but he's slightly better than middling. Sean's landing 5 strikes a minute. Jocko's landing 3. Yeah, he's getting hit a little bit more at 3.77 to Jocko's 1.9, sure. But he's still ahead. He's getting ahead in these fights. Reasonable striking defense. He's only getting hit with 34% of what he's facing. He's fought some pretty good competition. Not great, like I said, maybe a little bit better, but yeah, tough one here because the line's kind of stretched. Like, I like Sean Strickland to win this fight, but can you really lay this kind of chalk? What is it, -270 now, -260, depending where you go? That's kind of tough. I mean, if you would have got on this a little bit earlier, then I guess that would work out for you. But Strickland's been bet out quite a bit here. I don't really think there's any value left. I don't really know what to say. Are you going to find some spots for Strickland in your parlays, or is this a nice dog opportunity?
Yeah, okay, so I like Strickland. It's just a matter of, is it too wide of a price tag? So I like the guy. I like what he brings to the table. I mean, he's still only 30 years old, but people forget, like, so he had this huge, long layoff due to a motorcycle accident. And prior to the motorcycle accident, he looked like a pretty developing prospect, good takedown defense, good long-rangey jab. All the guys that I know that have trained with him, they just rave about this guy's work ethic, and just he's a beast in the gym. Then what you see in the octagon, not necessarily a beast. And he's gone on record himself being like, the day that the guy that I am in the gym shows up to the octagon, I'll be a contender. So he recognizes it himself that, like, there's a little bit of a lapse. Now you have 2.5 years of your career taken away because of this motorcycle accident, reconstructive knee surgery. It's like, okay, this is all cause for concern. How does this guy come back from that? They book him against Jack Marshman. If you watch that fight with Jack Marshman, it's like real-time progression of just ring rust coming off of your fighter. Like he starts just flowing and getting free and getting confident and starts just piecing up Jack Marshman. A lot of people are criticizing it online, being like, he's playing with his food. Why isn't he getting the finish? Why is he talking so much? He's putting a Kevin Holland in there. But it was like, dude's been off for 2.5 years. So what he doesn't need is a first-round knockout. What he doesn't need is a 2-minute finish. What he needs is 3 hard rounds, right? What he needs is to work on these combos and get that confidence up. And I really like that performance out of him because it showed that he was starting to get it back. Now they book him against Brendan Allen. I know a lot of people aren't Brendan Allen on the spot, but I roll with Sean Strickland. Just what I talked about. Confidence coming back. This is a confidence-based fighter. And there was always something there. He always had skill. It's whether or not he could put it together. Same thing with why are you so good in the gym, not great in the octagon? Confidence. He's getting the confidence going. And he just walked right through Brandon Allen. Absolutely put probably a career best performance together. Look exceedingly good. There's a lot that you can like from him out of this spot. Now, Jocko, once upon a time, kind of was my guy. I like Jocko. He'd come in through these spots. He's always kind of near even money. But stats are stats. And you can't deny that his wins in the UFC, Bruno Santos, no longer with the UFC, Tor Trong, cut, Scott Askham, cut, Brad Scott, cut, Tam Damracori, cut, Talis Laitis, believe he's no longer with the promotion, lose to Dave Branch, who's no longer with the promotion. He actually loses at 3 fights straight, but then he comes back with the wins. Alan Amandovsky, cut. Marc-Andre Barrio would be cut if it wasn't for his move to Sanford MMA that just totally rejuvenated the guy. And then Eric Anders his last time out. What's more troubling than that is that he wins a split decision over Barrio. Again, not a great version of Barrio. Where I thought he won the decision, but I know a couple of people thought he lost, and it was way closer than it needed to be. And then the Eric Anders fight, where, again, way closer than it needs to be. He's only 31 years old, but it seems like he's got durability issues. Once upon a time, he used to like to strike. Jocko used to like to use that Muay Thai, in and out, American top team guy, put some pressure on you, make you work. That's how he beat Talis Laitis, is made the guy work, took him into some deeper waters, starts to put some nice wins together. But then getting knocked out by Uriah Hall and then getting knocked out from Brad Tavares, it's just changed his mindset. He's not looking to engage anymore. So now he just wants to grapple. Now he just wants to push you up against the cage. Only his wrestling's not good enough to do that for 15 minutes. So it's a lot of cage control. And it's not the prettiest. It is effective, I suppose. Again, he did win the fight with Eric Anders. He did win the fight with Marc-Andre Barrio. But the fact that they're close and competitive is not great. Now, Sean Strickland has spent a lot of time at Dan Henderson's camp, and now recently he's in Extreme Couture in Las Vegas. Taking this guy down is a task. And as far as the fight standing, he's going to put that jab in Jocko's face. He's going to bust him up. If that right hand lands, could be over. I think Sean Strickland pulls away. Do I like that money line price tag? No. So now I'm trying to think, okay, well, how do I improve this? Do I take that Strickland by TKO prop? I don't love it, because again, he plays with his food a little bit. He didn't put Jack Marshman away. On the other hand, do I like that TKO prop? No. I'm not 100% sure on a prop. So again, I'd have to bet the money line, and because the money line's a little too high, I'm gonna have to parlay him, right? It's just an inevitable fact, right? So fingers crossed for Sean Strickland, but I do like him in the spot.
Yeah, it seems like it's his fight to lose. He's pretty much better everywhere. That's really all there is to it. But yeah, at what price do you just pass? It's getting very close. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this out past minus 300 by fight time, though. And the plus 140 by decision, I don't mind. If Jocko can waste enough time pressing him against the cage and whatnot and eat some shots, it can go there. But like you said, maybe a little bit of durability issues. So again, I'm confused on this one. I know it's Sean Strickland all day, but I don't know if my money is supposed to be laid on a minus 270. So maybe if you're an action junkie, a little parlay material for you there. Let's get on to the next one here. We got my man, Merab Dvalishvili, Cody Stamen. It's a good fight. It's a good fight. It's going to teach us a little bit about Merab here, I think. Look, I like this guy. I've liked him forever. I've bet on him in every single fight he's had in the UFC. A little disappointed in a couple of the results. I thought he's won every fight he's ever had. I thought he beat Frankie Saenz pretty clean. I was really upset with that loss. I was really upset when Ricky Simon was given the knockout with no time left on the clock, choking him out there. Merab worked both these guys. He landed 11 takedowns against Saenz. He basically just smoked Ricky Simon, I thought. He landed 61 strikes, knocked him down, got 6 takedowns, and then the ref just robs him at the end. And then he goes on from there to win his next 5. So I bet on this guy's 7 consecutive fights. I thought I won all 7. Now he's finally getting a test. I mean, John Dodson, he's a bit of a test, but he's so tiny that like he basically had no chance against a machine like Merab. But a guy like Cody Stamen's very interesting. This guy's fought good competition. He's done pretty well for himself. You know, he's done a little bit of work in the top 10 here. And he's got some pretty decent numbers. Now, if we look at the numbers and compare them, you'd say, well, why on earth is Merab such a big favorite? Cody Stamen's fought the better competition. He lands 4.1 strikes a minute. Merab's getting 3.9. Cody's getting hit 3.18. Merab's getting hit 2.08. So that's the big difference. But the strength of schedule is the key to that. But this is a guy, Cody Stamen, who's still landing a strike a minute more than his opponents. And he's fought good opponents. And he's still managing 3 takedowns every 15 minutes. So he's taking you down once a round. This is a guy who's been pretty good. But then when I look through this data, this is the important part, because I feel like if I was watching Gianni the Greek right now, he'd be all over Stamen. He's a guy that looks at the data but probably doesn't process it the way I would like to see it processed. Now, if we look at this schedule here, if you want to pick out the top fights he's had, Jimmy Rivera and Aljamain Sterling, separate those from the other fights. What do we see as a big difference here? He's got absolutely no volume against good competition. He landed 26 strikes on Jimmy Rivera in 15 minutes. That's nowhere near 4 a minute. Nowhere near his average, okay? He landed 12 against Aljo. That's, mind you, just past the midway point of round 2. But then again, he's on pace for just, low 20s. If you're not landing in the 50s against Merab, I don't see how you can win a fight against that guy. Like, basically, nobody should be able to beat him unless they're landing over 50 strikes. And the way I view this, with the way Merab likes to, glue to you and wrestle you the whole time, chain wrestle, it's going to be tough to land strikes. Maybe Cody stuffs enough of these takedowns and makes it tough, but you're not going to be landing combos when a guy's draped all over you. So at the end of the day here, I like Merab. I like him a lot, even at this price. I think that Merab's volume will be enough to take out Cody on the feet, even though Cody's the better striker. He's crisper. He hits harder. But yeah, the pace, man, it's just about the pace. Merab's just going to grind this guy out, press him against the cage, try to take him down, get pushed back off, and come back in swinging like a madman. And, that's his thing. Just rinse and repeat. The guy will never get tired. And I'm not saying Cody doesn't have good cardio or anything, but, I don't think he can keep that pace with Merab. So you'd have to think that his best out here to win is a knockout. And you know what? He's got no knockouts in the UFC. The guy's got 8 UFC fights. All of them decisions except for one, and the one was him getting submitted in round 2 against Aljo. So I don't really see his path to victory. In a lot of fights, Cody Stamen has the grappling advantage, and he's a pretty good boxer, and that makes him very live. That makes him a tough puzzle for a lot of guys. But if you can't throw any volume against guys in the top 10 like Rivera and Sterling, I think Merab's a top 10 guy. I think he's a future title challenger. I just don't see where this volume is going to come from. Merab's landing 7.7 takedowns every 15 minutes. I mean, that is a lot of work. He makes everybody work and sweat and just feel defeated. After so much time of this guy just leaning on you, you just start to kind of dwindle away from your game plan. You see the body language. I like Merab quite a bit in this spot. I don't really have any issue with anyone that would like Stamen here. I get it. But like I said, if I process the data this way and separate the tough competition from the weak, you see a huge gap in his performance. So I'm curious, what do you see in this fight? Do you think the line's a little high on Merab, or is it just on the spot it should be?
Yeah, no, listen, people love Merab because he's got that wrestling grind, and that's the way you win fights, being able to take these guys down repeatedly. And if they get back up, you take them right back down, rinse and repeat. And you see the guys that are having a lot of success with it, the Khabib Nurmagomedovs and the Khamzat Chimaevs and the Islam Makhachevs, like who beats that style? Like, it's just even once upon a time, guys like Cain Velasquez, what made him so special was that for a heavyweight, the guy could wrestle and he had good cardio. He takes you down and he smashes on you. And if you do get back up, he's just going to take you right back down and proceed to start smashing on you again. Rinse and repeat for 15 to 25 minutes. So again, Merab fights that same style, and people love it. You mentioned the Frankie Saenz fight, 11 takedowns. Ricky Simon, 6 takedowns. Terrion Ware, 5. Katona, 5. Casey Keeney, 12. Gustavo Lopez, 13. It's just has his way with all of them. But at some point, he's going to have to face better competition. At some point, he's going to have to face better wrestlers. And to me, he looks very limited. He's a very one-dimensional guy. Yeah, he can strike a little bit. The only times he strikes is when you're so fearful of the takedown that you just keep your hands low, and then maybe he lands one of those shots on you. He did knock out Rofion Stas with a spinning back fist in like 15 seconds on Contender Series once upon a time, or looking for a fight. But outside of that, it's just really herky-jerky, choppy striking. But it's that wrestling that he goes back to. The John Dodson fight, though, he only got him down twice. 15-minute time period. 2 for 20 on the takedowns. Now, we all know that Dodson can wrestle, and he's a mobile guy. And with Cody Stamann can wrestle as well. He's a guy that wrestled collegiately. He's left Michigan top team and is full-time down in Vegas now, Extreme Couture and Syndicate MMA, putting in really good rounds, improving. You do see the improvements from him fight to fight. Generally does come in good shape. I would say does have the striking advantage. You make a good point with his volume. His volume isn't really all that good. But the two fights that you referenced were grappling fights. Or not grappling fights. Jimmy Rivera is a counterpuncher. He's a low volume guy himself. But how do you strike with him, right? You can't take the guy down, so he forces you to strike with him. And it's just too difficult to hit. I mean, he's a guy that evades a lot of the damage, but you have to engage him, and that's when he has his best game. So Cody Stamann in that fight doesn't let his hands go, but it's understandable. And the Aljamain Sterling fight, it's just grappling the entire time, right? It wasn't really a great opportunity to let his hands go. Now, he gave an okay account of himself early in the Aljo fight in those grappling exchanges, but Aljo tires the guy out. Aljo submits him. But as we all know, Aljo, 2 or 3 best guy in the world, again, it's kind of excusable. Now, Narab Davashvili is a training partner of Aljamain Sterling, right? He puts in great rounds with him in the gym and is always staying really tight. But Aljo just recently had surgery, right? He's scheduled to be out 6 to 7 months and is not even looking to rebook that fight with Peter Yan for quite some time now. So you take his best training partner away from him. Chris Weidman just broke his leg in a fight. Like, that's got to put a damper on the gym's like business and atmosphere. Like, the momentum. Like, it's not saying that one thing is going to change anything. I just mean if Merab doesn't show up in the best shape that he's been in, he will get takedowns no matter what. I'll tell you the problem. The problem is 11 over Frankie Saenz. What does that tell you? Frankie just kept getting back up. The 6 against Ricky Simone. Well, Ricky Simone just kept getting back up. Terrion Ware. Terrion Ware is a pro boxer. Terrion Ware can't grapple at all. 5 takedowns. Why? Because even Terrion Ware was able to get back up. Brad Couture, Casey Kinney, Gustavo Lopez, 13 takedowns. And you watch the fight, he takes him down, and Gustavo just gets back up. So I know he's going to take down Cody Stamann. My question is, if Cody Stamann is able to, just like everybody else, get back up, can he land enough in those voids between getting taken down to persuade the judges? Now, one, judges are awful. We've seen that from them going to Jacksonville, Florida, or they're back at the Apex, same thing, Nevada. Judges are terrible. And you referenced that fact that he got robbed against Frankie Saenz, and he did. In what world do you score 11 takedowns to none and lose a fight? It doesn't make any sense. But he was ever so slightly outstruck in that fight. And the judges, they don't really reward takedowns if there's no, ground and pound or submission threat. Like, it just depends who's watching the fight. So as a 2-1 underdog in Cody Stamann, if we get a couple of questionable judges, or he can even just keep this fight close, it would be worth the price tag, right? So I'm not completely disagreeing with it. But if you're backing Cody Stamann, you are in for a sweat because he's going to be taken down a lot. Now, the absolute play on this is the fight goes the distance. But they've got it marked perfectly. It's like, what, minus 325. But Davashvili is a decision machine. He's fought low guys, he's fought okay guys, and he just grapples them into oblivion, but does not finish anything. And Cody Stamann, same thing. You know what I mean? He looks to grind on you as well. So it's a 3-1 price tag. But if you're looking for like a safe parlay piece, this fight to go the distance seems like the bet of the card.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Even Merab by decision, I don't mind at all. And I agree with you. If this guy had any top game at all, he could probably be champion. But he has none. Everyone just pops back up. And a guy like Cody Stamann is going to pop back up. It's just, can he throw enough volume in between the takedown attempts? And I don't know that he can. He couldn't do it against Aljo. And I know Aljo's really good, obviously. But the style of Merab is not going to allow you to load up combos basically ever. So pretty tough sledding. And yeah, bad judging is the scariest thing I think here. But I think Merab probably outstrikes him and takes him down a whole bunch of times and just grinds out another decision. Merab definitely needs to get his wrestling up to another level. Getting you down is one thing, but if you can't hold anybody down, you're probably not going to do too well in the top 5. And he's on his way there, but yeah, he definitely needs to get his top game going. So we're going to see here. This is going to be the best wrestler he's ever, had to face. And we're going to learn a lot about both guys, I think, in this spot for sure. So, yeah, my pick's Merab. I think there's a slight value, but I totally understand if people think there's value on Stamen. It's a tough one, probably an easy pass for a lot of people. Polyana Botelho, Luana Carolina. I thought I was going to like Botelho going into this, and I guess I kind of do. But I kind of don't. I don't know, man. This one is so tough to say. I feel like Carolina sucks, like she throws the volume, but she doesn't throw with any power. Doesn't really have the ground game. Doesn't really have anything I'm looking for. But the volume counts. And if a fight's likely to go to decision, the volume's pretty much the most important thing you can, think of. So since she's landing, over double the strikes that Botelho does, that gives her a bit of an edge. But then again, she's only fought bad competition. Second, she fought anybody decent like Lipsky. She was finished in a few seconds. Got knee barred. That was, I guess unlucky you could say. But, this isn't Priscilla Cachoeira here that you can just tee up on all day. Botelho's pretty decent, pretty well-rounded. Her losses recently to two of, the better grapplers in the division. And Carolina is certainly not a good grappler. So this should stay on the feet. And I know Botelho throws it with a lot more heat. But again, if you're not going to put the girl away, then it's going to be kind of close and kind of weird. So at this price tag, I don't know what to make of it. I kind of like Botelho inside the distance. I've seen that around plus 360. I don't really expect it to be finished, but I think that's a little bit high. And then again, on the flip side, if you like Carolina, well, she's not going to finish Botelho, I don't think, pretty much ever. So if you want to look at her by decision, you're going to up your odds a little bit more too. Tough one. I think a lot of people have Botelho in parlays. Personally, I have no action on this one yet, but do you have any action on this one, Cody?
No, I mean, it's a very fadeable fight. I'm sure I'll end up having some action on it. If I'm looking for like a small little sprinkle type of punt, I didn't mind that Polyana Botelho by submission. And the reason I say that is she shows no submissions on her record. But it's that Luana Carolina appears to have no ability to actually grapple. So, I mean, she's a Muay Thai fighter. She's got a ton of volume. When she fought on Dana White's Contender Series, it was like the Brazil version. I remember watching that fight, and she's young, she's raw, she has almost no experience. She came in the fight as 4-1, and she just lets her hands go, lets the kicks go, lets the knee go. Very, very Muay Thai style fighter, and just has great output, great volume, and is fighting a low-level competition, but goes out there and rightfully so earns herself a victory. Now she's debuting in the UFC. She gets the contract. She debuts. They give her Priscilla Cachoeira. Now Cachoeira is very lumbering, right? Likes to plod forward, likes to be aggressive and come straight forward. And, I mean, if Luana Carolina was going to win a fight, it's somebody who's not going to take her down, who's going to stand in front of her and just allow her to get outworked. And Carolina does that. She outworks Priscilla Cachoeira and gets the victory. Now you got that Ariana Lipsky fight. Now Lipsky, former KSW champion, is a Muay Thai fighter. She's very much a striker in every aspect of the game. She's been not doing good in the UFC. She's considered a busted prospect by pretty much all pundits that were hyped up on her when she came over from Poland. It's like, Lipsky's done. And that transition to the knee bar. No. I'll give you a little bit of backstory beforehand, right? Somebody sent me a video, and they were like, absolutely no chance, do not bet Luana Carolina. And I was just like, why? They're like, check out this video of her strength and conditioning from like a week ago. It was on social media, it was on Instagram or something. And she can't do a push-up. Like, her strength and conditioning coach asking her to do a push-up. She's like on the ground struggling. Worst form you've ever seen in your life. Like, she's not physically strong. Now, with these Muay Thai fighters, you'll see a lot of time in Thailand. They can throw 500 strikes a minute. That's obviously an exaggeration. You know what I mean? Throughout the course of a fight, they're going to throw hundreds of strikes. They just never stop. They just keep going. But the second that the fight hits the ground, it's like they're not physically strong enough to get out. It's a different type of muscle. And so when she fought Lipsky, I'm watching the fight happen, and she just gets tossed to the ground. And oh my God, Dave, she has no idea what's going on. She just feeds her a knee bar. And Lipsky, of all people, snatches it up and submits her. Crazy. Now, I know it's a year ago. It's just I really couldn't get behind that. I couldn't then and I couldn't now. And when I look at this spot against Polyana Botelho, she's not been on a great run, right? But one, I lost to Jillian Robertson, who's a perennial gatekeeper for the division. Not terrible. The loss to Cynthia Calvillo missed weight, came in at 118 pounds. And again, it's proven to be one of the top 5 girls in the division. Fights at 125 pounds now. So if those are somewhat excusable, then we'll give her the pass there. It's that she's at American Top Team. Apparently, she's a BJJ black belt, and she's Matus Nicolau's girlfriend. Matus Nicolau, also UFC veteran out of American Top Team. The plan, ATT smart enough to put the right game plan forward, and the right game plan forward here is, yeah, you used to strike. You're a Nova União fighter back in the day. You like to let that body kick go, like the Suri Kondo fight. You like to but mix in those takedowns, and if you do, the submission will present itself. And just because she doesn't have a history of submitting people doesn't mean she's not able to. It just depends on the right matchup, and this would be that matchup. So it's like plus 585 on a Botelho submission prop. I would have a look at that. The pick is also going to be Botelho. I just don't know that I have enough confidence to securely put a nice chunk size of my money on that.
Yeah, we're very much on the same page. The inside the distance I thought was kind of live for the price. That submission thing, same thing. That's how I'd picture it getting done. Sometimes you get a good ground and pound in, but look, she's got 100% takedown accuracy, Botelho. She's only attempted 3. She's landed all 3. It's a pretty good spot to attempt a couple. Just maybe try one more, and then you got this in the bag. So, I prefer the inside the distance style like we were just talking about, because volume-wise, it's Carolina all day. Power-wise, it's Botelho all day. So how are these judges going to, score damage versus volume? We don't know. They're so incapable of doing their job. But yeah, man, that submission prop does sound pretty tasty at 580. And the inside the distance around 360. Yeah, maybe little tiny sprinkles on those. And minus 250 is not horrible, but you're going to be sweating bullets, I think, if this goes to decision and if she's not attempting the takedowns. I mean, one takedown's probably not enough for a not sweating your ass off decision. So, yeah, it's Botelho's fight to lose. I don't think Carolina is a UFC caliber fighter at all. So we're going to find out if she is or not here. But that wraps up the main card. Now we're going to sprinkle a little bit into the prelims here. My lock of the night, which is pathetic again, I know it's the biggest favorite on the card, but this is beatdown city. Loma Lukbumin, Sam Hughes. Look, Sam just got absolutely decimated by Tecia Torres. Torres must have landed every strike she threw, because she landed 10 strikes a minute on this girl. Just pieced her up. It was only a 50% accuracy, so to even be able to load up 20 strikes a minute is not really having any respect for your opponent, and she didn't need to have any. Sam had nothing for her at all. So, to get outstruck 10-4 every minute, it's not a very good path to victory. Now, I know that's Tecia Torres. She's a veteran. She's a good striker. She's good, but she's like an absolute decision machine. And here she just works this girl over so bad that I just don't have a lot of faith. I know it's kind of like last minute kind of thing and tough competition for your debut, but she just did not make a good account of herself. I like to look at the strength of schedule, but I am kind of judging you on what kind of account you make of yourself. Just because you fought better people doesn't mean you're good. She looked horrible, man. She looked about as bad as anyone's ever looked in the UFC, I thought. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's the way I seen it in the film a couple days ago. Loma looks good. If she wasn't undersized for the division, she would be a real force to be reckoned with. She should probably be fighting at 105. We know 105 doesn't exist. But at 115, a little bit undersized. She lands 5 strikes a minute. She absorbs 3. Good accuracy at 55%. 59% defense, so 41 are getting through. That's really good. That's a huge gap, plus 14% on the striking versus expected. That puts you in the upper echelon of UFC strikers versus your competition, whatever. But that's good. That's very good. And she's done it against okay competition. I wouldn't say it's good, but she had a pretty good account of herself with Angela Hill. Angela Hill is someone who, she's not well respected, I don't think, by the MMA community. But over the last year and a half or so, I think Angie has improved immensely, a lot. She's twice as good of a fighter as she was in 2018. And so I thought Loma looked decent against Angie. And if you can stand and bang with Angie while being undersized, I think you're going to stand and bang the shit out of Sam Hughes. So, yeah, in no way do I see Sam as a live dog here. She's never attempted a takedown in the UFC. She probably should have. Well, she was getting hit in the face 10 times a minute against Tecia. But yeah, if you're not even going to try that, you're probably not going to be. You're not going to be shooting here either. Loma, reasonable takedown defense, 72%. I think that should hold up against Sam, and she should probably peel away in the strikes. great stuff in the clinch, good tie kicks, good elbows. It's a pretty reasonable chance that Loma cuts her up with an elbow. This girl's still young, coming into her own. I guess you could say I'm a Loma fan here. I don't mind the price tag if you guys are into parlay pieces. I know we've mentioned so many, like Sean Strickland. Maybe Loma's a good partner for someone like Sean. I like this. I'm going to sprinkle her in a little bit of parlay action. What do you think of Loma Lookbooming in this spot?
Yeah. I mean, you basically nailed it right on the head. I mean, she's a little bit undersized. She probably could fight at 105 pounds. That's not a division in the UFC, so she's forced to fight up at 115. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, what do you not like about her? I mean, she's got like 100 amateur, or she's got 100 professional Muay Thai fights. She's nasty in the clinch. Her clinch game is really good, really solid. It's very tough, even though she's 5'1". It's tough to muscle her around. She's got good striking output, good volume. Doesn't use the leg kicks as much as I'd like for a Thai fighter, but again, I mean, she's advanced for the division for sure. Coming in against Angela Hill, nobody gave her any favors. I mean, that's a very tough matchup. And as we saw last week with Ariana Carnelossi, she came into the UFC, she fought Angela Hill, very difficult task, loses the fight. People may or may not write her off. And it's just like, these girls aren't bad. It's just they need to get that right opponent. And she goes out there against Na Liang, and Na Liang opened up good for the first 2-3 minutes, but you just see Carnelossi weather it because now you got that experience. Luke Boume has that experience now. With Sam Hughes was an okay amateur, right? Fought Godinez a couple times. As a pro, building up. The fight was Vanessa Demopoulos. It should be tailor-made for a girl like Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes wins the first 3 rounds. If it was a 3-round fight, she would have won a decision. Fortunately, it was a championship fight. And as soon as the fight hits the ground in the 4th, Sam Hughes gives up the inverted triangle choke. That's not the problem. The problem is you make a debut against Tecia Torres, one of the best, fought all the best girls in the world. We all know it's a crazy task. We all know it's a very tough fight. We all know Sam Hughes has almost no chance of winning this fight. The thing is that Tecia Torres has 12 pro wins, right? None of which have ever been by knockout, other than Sam Hughes. Now, you can argue that it was a cut stoppage or it was an eye injury after the first round, but what it was is Sam Hughes got absolutely lit up in that first round and did not want to continue. And I don't fault her. She was getting killed. What good could have come from fighting a second round? But if Ticia's going to do that to you, Luke Boume is going to have something waiting for you. She's nasty with that clinch again. She loves the elbows. She loves in-fight, grinding type fighting. The win over Jinyu Frey, I mean, you see that she's coming in the right direction. And the misconception is people be like, she's from Thailand. Like, who's she working with her wrestling? It's like, she's at Tiger Muay Thai. So actually a ton of people, the Hickman brothers working with her. Peter Yan is at a Tiger Muay Thai. Like, there's a plethora of good talent there. No doubt that she's making improvements. So I think that this is a very good fight to go out there and win Sam Hughes. My underdog, or not my underdog, but my undercard selection that I'm going to go with, one hell of a sweat for anybody who's going to follow me on this one. We're going to go with Luke Sanders, right? Now, do I like Luke Sanders at 145? Not as much. Luke's got the advantage in this fight outside of chin everywhere. He is a much better striker than Felipe Corrales. He's a much better wrestler than Felipe Corrales. He's got much bigger wins, much better experience, much higher punch output. He's just kind of got all those variables. The one thing is that he's super chinny, so to speak. When you look at him at his best, right, he lands 94 strikes over Uri Alcantara, 10-8 first round before he gives up that knee bar. Bonehead decision. The Andre Suguntath fight, he kills him in the first round and then gives up that right cross knockout in the second. And then the Nate Maness fight, he smokes Nate for 4 minutes of the first round before getting dropped. It's like this guy generally doesn't go out there and look bad. He goes out there and makes a mental lapse, makes a mental issue. But even so, 55 strikes Nate landed against Nate Maness before getting finished at 229. Didn't hit the over 1.5 on that one. 229 of the second round. What I'm getting at is 55 significant strikes landed, 2.5 minutes against Nate, and eventually he loses. When you look at Felipe Corrales, dude, first of all, in order to beat our boy here, you're going to have to hurt him. You're going to have to go out there and sting him. He doesn't really seem to have any power. But beyond that, you got to let your hands go in order to land something to sting him. And the volume's not there at all. So when he makes his UFC debut against Geraldo de Freitas, he lands 21 strikes over 15 minutes. The fight with Domingo Pilarte, he lands 23. And then his last fight against Montel Jackson, he landed 7. These fights are going 15 minutes, man. And he's landing less than 25 significant strikes 3 times. So now we have more than a pint-sized portion. We know this is a guy that's going to throw low volume. He likes to rely on his wrestling. His submission game's not good enough, I don't think, to just catch Luke Sanders. He's not strong enough to physically score the takedowns on Luke Sanders. It should be Sanders boxing him up and Sanders taking him down. Now, the one wrinkle is we're going to take Luke Sanders minus 140. But beyond that, I think if Luke's going to win this fight, this thing probably goes the distance. So as much as I'm shitting on Corrales' low output, and he's not all that physically strong, and this and that, he does have a cast iron chin, man. He has gone the distance in all three of his fights, but the fight with Montel Jackson, he gets outstruck 75-7 and does get knocked down. And just keeps going, man. I mean, he's got a hell of a chin on him. So I think Luke is smart enough to not blow the wad this time. Pace yourself. Don't land so many strikes, but land the meaningful ones. Mix in a takedown or two. Play a protective game. Secure that victory. And I think he's live to do that. He's got the skill. You just got to make sure. He reminds me of Luke Rockhold, man. The skill is there. It's just like his inability to take a punch or make proper judgment calls in the heat of the moment tend to cost him. Hopefully Luke doesn't do that. Sanders should be able to get the victory.
Yeah, so Luke's durability is the question here for sure. But I mean, is Corrales the kind of guy that's gonna take advantage of your durability? Like you said, not landing strikes. He lands 1.1 per minute.
Awful.
My mom lands 1.1 per minute in the UFC. Okay, Luke Sanders lands 6.2 to 1.1. I mean, there's no question that Luke will be ahead on the scorecards. He might as well be minus 800 on the scorecards. It's a matter of, can he survive? And you know what? I think you might have just talked me into Luke Sanders being a great play, because how on earth is Felipe supposed to be ahead in this fight? So the live line will be there all day if you want to hedge out and free roll Luke. This could very well be the best play of the weekend if you want to load up on Luke and then hedge a couple minutes in, free roll it, sip a Mai Tai, and enjoy the fight. Yeah, I mean, this could be a really good way to get the card started. Yeah, but I mean, 6.2 strikes a minute to 1.1, that is a significant gap. It's just his takedown defense sitting at 66% and his durability. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess Felipe does have a path to victory, but having said that, yeah, you totally just convinced me that Luke's a great play here, especially with probably being able to get Felipe like plus 250 3 minutes into this fight. Why not?
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. Great point. All right, well, we'll close it up with that. I hope you guys listened up. You got your value, you know, all your little parlay pieces. That's it. Linesniper Fight Night. We're out of here.